everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Financial Insight Show. Today, I have a very, very special guest, and many of you might associate him with certain brands such as Zona and a couple of others. But in the studio today is Brad Magrath, who is a partner at AHL Venture Capital. Hi, Brad. How are you doing?
Well, awesome to be here and great to catch up again. Eh?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I linked up with you at Impact Capital Africa. I know you've been attending many of these events, but for many people that may have forgotten who Brad Magrath is, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're coming from. And I know, we go a long way because, I had an opportunity of working for you and your brother at one of your earlier ventures.
Yes, born in Zambia, and my dad still lives in Kitwe. Two of my brothers still live in Zambia, so it's always good to come home. But I grew up in Zambia and Singapore because my mum lived there. Went to school in South Africa, did my studying, did some traveling, and then I think did a little bit of corporate. So I set up the first paint factory for Plascon Paints here in Lusaka, and then I was a commercial director of Telecel. But I think within myself was always a burning desire to really think about how things could be done differently. So really always at heart an entrepreneur and a real firm believer in entrepreneurship. So the calling for me then came as like, how do we go and find problems that are worth solving, that genuinely have a positive impact on people's lives and communities, but are built in such a way to be sustainable and make profits so that they are self-sustaining and can generate value for all stakeholders, shareholders and customers alike.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, just to give people a perspective, from the time you left Telecel, what was like your first venture into more or less entrepreneurship?
So I think the first one was Super Strikers, which was a comic that we distributed free through the Post newspaper.
Yeah, I remember that.
And there was a character, Shakes Masonda. In South Africa, he would have been Shakes Mokoena. So essentially, all we really did is we localized content. We sold the advertising right, so you would always be drinking a Coke or using a cell phone from one of the brands or going to the Spur restaurant. And Total, the petrol station or energy company, was one of the main sponsors. So that allowed us to distribute it free. I think at our peak, we were distributing 30,000 comics a month with a readership of 300,000 people a month. And I think it was always meant to be a role model. So I think thinking about how do you create a character that resonates with people, especially the youth, and can be someone to be aspired to.
Absolutely. Now, looking back at your career, because obviously you start up as an entrepreneur and now you're a partner. Essentially, now you're helping young entrepreneurs. What are some of the key questions that you get asked when young entrepreneurs approach you to say, okay, look, I want to start up a business, because you have a wealth of experience?
So I think often the first thing people ask for is they want money.
Correct.
But I think it's one thing I really encourage young entrepreneurs to think about is your cheapest form of capital is your customer. So the more traction you can get, the more customers you can get, the more revenue you can get. Even more important than revenue is the more profits and free cash you can generate. Like that really is your first source of capital in Africa in many situations. Elsewhere in the world, there's the sort of the friends and family concept, but there's very few entrepreneurs that are privileged enough to have that friends and family network that can support their business in the beginning. Again, I was very lucky, privileged that certainly in the beginning our family did help us through some tough times as we looked to start businesses, but not everyone has that fortune.
Absolutely.
And I think also the angel network is still very new in Zambia as a concept. So it might not be fair, but talent is universal, opportunity is not. So for the Zambian entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in some of the smaller markets, you've really got to hustle. You've really got to build that team and traction, find customers, find revenue, and that's when the money will come. The money won't support an idea. It won't support a concept. It's really going to look for entrepreneurs that have shown the resilience and curiosity and innovation and hustle to get the business to a point where it can potentially take on capital, which makes it tougher, which makes it harder, but it also builds a really resilient entrepreneur. And entrepreneurship is never easy. So that ability to be resilient, to find a way, to hustle a way through, I think is crucial.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, I'm sitting here and I'm remembering, you've had presence in South Africa, you've had presence in Zambia. Now you're in East Africa. What has the landscape been like for you personally? But then also, where are you seeing opportunities for young entrepreneurs across these three geographical locations?
So I think opportunities are are there. There's always an opportunity, and especially in tough times, especially in markets where there's fragmentation and things don't always work. So I think in Zambia, the environment, I mean, we were at the same event, the IC event, the environment is really coming together because it takes a village, it takes an ecosystem of players, and there were some very impressive entrepreneurs at that event with some very impressive businesses. And I think one of the things I'd encourage entrepreneurs in a place like Zambia, solve real problems, solve problems that fundamentally change people's lives, so that there's an ability to charge a premium or a fair price so that you can create margin, so that you can create growth, so that you can create free cash flow. So I think at this stage of Zambia's economic or sort of venture capital or capital evolution, it's all about sustainable growth. In other markets like Kenya for a while and South Africa at certain times, there's been much more focus on top-line growth, where you can be a lot more aggressive around growing top-line revenues and almost burn cash to prove that growth theory. But I think that also in East Africa and South Africa has come under a lot of pressure because ultimately our capital markets are not mature enough to really take a company through all the stages of growth. So at some point, and I think it's now a lot sooner than later, investors want to see positive unit economics, they want to see sustainable growth, and they don't want to just see growth for growth's sake. So again, I think the type of market Zambia is preparing its entrepreneurs for the type of capital that's going to be out there for the next 3 to 5 years in these tougher economic climates. So I think the resilience, the focus on free cash flow, the focus on solving real customer problems, and the focus that you really are looking to deliver value that someone will pay for, that you can charge more than what it costs you to deliver. And that then builds an engine that can really grow profitably and sustainably.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, one of the things that I'd like to pick your brain on is, the recent event that we just had. You've been a part of Impact Capital for several years now. You've seen it actually grow. What excited you about this year's particular event, especially at the stage at which Zambia is at right now?
I think what excited me this week is the same thing that excited me 20 years ago when I started my entrepreneurial journey, and it's entrepreneurs and technology, and I link them both together. It can be tech enabled, it can be tech embedded, but entrepreneurship and technology allows us to leapfrog and allows us to make exponential change at exponential speed in a way that's never been done before. So with the right mindset, with the right team, with the right focus on customer, technology really does allow scale. One thing that I really liked about what I saw at the event this week was the level of ambition and innovation. I think people were seeing Zambia as a hub. So you're not just thinking about serving 20 million Zambians, you're going from Zambia, we can serve the 65 million people within our neighboring and adjacent countries. So I do think you as an entrepreneur, if you want to raise capital and you want to scale, you have to have that level of ambition. But equally, you've had to have built the team and had the traction so that there's a credible link between your level of ambition in terms of capability and competence with what you've achieved to date.
Right. Now, let's talk about skills, because I know obviously the different geographical regions that you've had a chance to work with. What's the skills profile looking like, and where do you think Zambia needs to actually push? Because I know that a lot are talking about artisanship, etc. But is that truly the area that we need to work on?
So I think if where I would focus is software engineering and tech, because you can export those skills. You could be a Zambian coder coding for a company anywhere in the world. And I think there's a lot of focus on this. So I spent 18 months at ALX, headed up their ALX software engineering program, and we scaled that up to 50,000 students. When I was there, the entrance fee was free. You just had to pass an exam, show a commitment, and then there was a deferred income sharing scheme later when you then got a career and got a job. I don't know what the pricing model is now, but I think yes, artisan. There will always be value in that. But if you really want to create margin and create real meaningful incomes, like focus on tech, focus on software engineering, and sell yourself out to the world market. Get those skills, get that competence, and then find a way of being based in Zambia, charging way lower rates than an engineer will charge in let's say Europe or America, but also earn figures that you wouldn't be able to earn in a local market. So I really just think about how do you take the world is going more and more tech. How do you really upskill yourself in those skills, and then how do you think about exporting those skills into other markets so that you can earn real money? And I think yes, artisanship, absolutely. Yes, agriculture, absolutely. But just don't underestimate how real tech competence and a tech environment can really allow a community to price at prices that can earn real margin if you get onto the global market.
Right. Many people say that it's in times of crisis that humanity is most innovative. With the current challenges such as power, I mean, you've experienced it when in South Africa and in Zambia. Do you think that this is kind of like the push sometimes that's required to get innovators out there, especially that around technology?
Yeah, I think never. What's the saying? Never. I think two things: never waste a good crisis, and the mother of innovation is scarcity. So in those scarce moments, you have to be innovative. I mean, you only have to look at how something like COVID-19 changed my business career. Like I was on an airplane every Monday and every Thursday, and then suddenly I was able to work from home. So I think you really need to think about what is the underlying problem you're solving, and then how do you think about creating that solution within the scarcity and within the challenges. And I do then think also that, there are certain prerequisites that need to be fully functional for people to thrive. I mean, I didn't realize until I got here the other day that there were these extended power failures that impacts business. It adds to cost, it adds to complexity. So you do need some infrastructure on the ground that's working and some regulation that makes investing easier. And then you get this like latent energy and talent of people coming through. But you do have to create an ecosystem that functions so that talent can really come to the fore.
Right.
Both in terms of product, solutions, people.
Okay. So now obviously you're at AHL. Now tell us a little bit about what this entity is all about. I saw your pitch and it was quite interesting this year at Impact Capital where you guys obviously also had to pitch. And what makes you guys unique in terms of the offering that you guys
So I think maybe let me first explain why I joined is I think I'd always had this underlying hypothesis, philosophy, conviction that entrepreneurship and tech could drive real change in Africa. And I still hold true to that. But I think during my journey as an entrepreneur, I really started to understand that capital unlocks that ability to generate value through that. And it's the right type of capital at the right time for the right type of businesses. So when there was an opportunity to join AHL, it was like, are they aligned with my personal values?
Right.
Can I have a real impact there? And are we going to do the type of investing that can really move the needle and have a positive impact and also prove that you can get risk-adjusted returns for investors in Africa? Because ultimately, there's only so much capital that we can source within Africa. We have to show that African investments can generate the type of returns that really brings international capital. And unfortunately, they do have to be risk-adjusted returns because there's a perception of risk when you come into markets like this. So what we do is we focus on three core thematics, being financial inclusion, sustainable food and agriculture, and smart climate. Because we're a permanent capital vehicle and because we're local partners on the ground in Kenya, we really have the ability to influence product and strategy. So we look at both equity, we look at debt, we look at working capital, and then we have a ticket size between $3 and $5 million. And then we really look at how do we go into businesses where the team more than the founder, the team are ready to execute and have the ambition to really build something that we can grow with them successfully to exit. And the key point for us is to exit because we want to realize value to show that you invest capital in Africa, you take a period of time, you make a return on that capital. And then the beauty about us is because we're a permanent capital vehicle, all that capital flows back into Africa again to the next group of entrepreneurs. So it's a perpetual cycle of hopefully value creation, value realization to constantly find the next group of entrepreneurs that can drive impact, so drive positive impact on their communities, but do it in a way that's sustainable so it's long-term value creating.
Absolutely. No, Brad, I mean, we could sit here all day and discuss all issues, but maybe just on a final question. At the moment, are there any projects that you're working with that are exciting you?
So here in Zambia, we're invested in Java Foods with Monica Masonda, the CEO. We've just invested in another financial institution here. I think where we're really excited is we've got a couple of companies that have really scaled. So one is looking at a potential IPO on the international markets, which I think will be a real proof point for investors into Africa. We have a cook stove manufacturing business that's doing really interesting work, and the overlay of carbon credits is quite phenomenal, and the level of scale that company has achieved is incredible. We have another business that does work here in Zambia, which is related to soil health and regenerative agriculture, and really thinking about how do you enable all farmers to know what they should be putting into their soil, so you're not just pouring the wrong ingredients at huge prices. Right. How are you maximizing what you put in? So I think those type of businesses, but ultimately behind each one of those businesses is an absolutely committed founding team. Right. So we actually invest in people. Right. We don't invest in products. We don't invest in ideas. Yes, we invest in businesses, but ultimately the investment decision is who we're investing in. Mm-hmm. And are those founders curious? Are they resilient? Mm-hmm. Do they have ambition? Do they have the discipline to really execute on a business model to deliver long-term sustainable value? So we think a lot about discipline and execution, because ultimately, you spoke about management. It's how do you build human capacity within your businesses at scale. So it's not about the founder, it's about the leadership team. And then even more importantly, exponential value is delivered by strong middle management. Mm-hmm. So how are you thinking about developing your middle management so that you can do what you need to do as a CEO, because they're doing what they need to do to consistently deliver customer value, superior financial results, all in service of generating an exit that delivers value for all shareholders and stakeholders.
Okay. Brad Magrath, thank you so much for speaking.
Well, always great to connect.
I
and
look
catch
forward
up.
to interviewing you in Nairobi.
You are always welcome in Nairobi, so please come and visit.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it for yourselves. Stay tuned for more insights on the Financial Insight Show. This has been Mwelwa with Brad Magrath, talking to you about investing and everything in between. Stay tuned and get to know.